Chapter 5. Zenta could see that his companion had a question on the tip of his tongue. As soon as the door closed behind the old woman, Matsuzo asked, "Do you think that Shigeteru will try to get in touch with Ume?" "Why does everyone assume that Shigeteru and his men are coming?" said Zenta. "Well, the Chamberlain and Jihei seem to expect his coming," said Matsuzo. "Perhaps they have some definite news." "Shigeteru would be a stupid fool to come here and attempt to take over the castle by force," said Zenta. "He would be an even greater fool to reveal his identity to that gossipy old woman." "He might not have any choice about revealing his identity," Matsuzo pointed out. "I think she would recognize him." "I doubt it," said Zenta. "You heard what Ume said. Shigeteru was only a boy when he left. 10 years at his stage of growth can change his looks completely." "I still think Ume knows something," insisted Matsuzo. Zenta didn't bother to answer. Ume was stupid and thought herself cunning, a disastrous combination and a conspirator. He wanted no part of her dangerous plots. Taking out his 2 swords, he sat down on a straw cushion and began a minute examination of the blades. Then, from a little pouch attached to his sash, he took out a small jar of oil and some rags. With these he polished his swords, his hands caressing the beautiful grain of the blades. It had been said that a samurai's sword was his soul. For Zenta, his swords were also his only constant companions in his lonely, wandering life. They had been given to him by a grateful warlord. For a while his future at the court of this warlord had looked bright, but he had left that job, just as he had left so many other promising jobs. Zenta glanced at Matsuzo and wondered how long the young ronin would be able to stand their life of restlessness and near starvation. Even worse was the occasional humiliation, such as when they had to ask for lodgings at farmhouses because there was no money for an inn. "Would you like to stay at this castle permanently?" Zenta asked his companion. Matsuzo looked wistful. "This is a strong castle from what I've seen of it so far. Are you planning to stay on after the succession dispute is settled?" For an instant, Zenta was gripped by a longing so intense that it was suffocating. Then their door slid open. A pretty maid with roguish eyes poked her head in and said, "Your bath is ready, gentlemen." "Ah, at last!" said Matsuzo. "I was afraid that we had been forgotten." The 2 men followed the maid down some stairs. More than once she glanced back coyly at them, and her expression said plainly that she was one of the advantages they could expect if they entered Lady Tama's service. They stepped out of a door and into a quiet courtyard. The stars were already out, and the air was cold. "This way, please," directed the little maid. The bathhouse was a small wooden building consisting of a dressing room and a washing room. The floor of the washing room was a widely spaced slats, so that water could run off when the bather squatted on it to scrub and rinse. The tall square sub for soaking was made of fragrant cypress. It was brimming with hot water which gave off clouds of steam, a most welcome sight on this chilly night. "Do you have everything you need, gentlemen?" asked the little maid. "I shall be back soon with some clean clothes." With a bow she left the dressing room. "Please be first," said Matsuzo. Zenta lost no time in shrugging out of his torn clothes and stepping down into the washing room. First he splashed himself with a bucket, and then, using a sponge made of gourd fiber, he began to scrub away a week's accumulation of grime. Then he rinsed himself, and, thoroughly cleansed, climbed into the steaming tub for a soak. He sat down gingerly until he was up to his neck in the scalding water, which was heated to the limit of endurance by a small fire beneath the tub. He sighed, and closed his eyes in bliss. It had been a long time since he had last enjoyed a private bath like this, a pleasant exchange from public baths where a dozen or more people shared a tub. In the dressing room, Matsuzo squatted in front of a large mirror and tried to retie his top knot neatly. The little maid who had showed them to the bath was charming, and Matsuzo hoped that she would return in time to scrub his back. He thought it likely that she would serve dinner to them later. Her cheeks dimpled delightfully when she smiled, and he intended to find out if she would be free after dinner. The thought of dinner made Matsuzo very hungry, and he was glad when Zenta called out that he was nearly through with the soaking. Undressing promptly, Matsuzo stepped down into the washing room and prepared to scrub himself. He was just in time to see the window behind Zenta opening. Before Matsuzo had time to call out a warning, Zenta's head jerked up. With a tremendous splash, he bounded out of the tub and rushed out of the bathhouse. Drenched and bewildered, Matsuzo blinked the water from his eyes and followed his companion. Guided by the sound of crackling shrubbery, he made his way to the back of the building. He found Zenta standing at the open window, which had been directly behind the bathtub. "What happened?" he asked. Zenta motioned Matsuzo to be silent. He listened intently and peered all around. There was not a sound. "When I was in the tub just now, I felt something icy go down the back of my neck," he said slowly. At these words, Matsuzo could almost feel ice on his own back. His teeth began to chatter. Footsteps approached, and both men whirled around. They saw 2 shadowy figures walk up to the bathhouse. In the light from the open window, Matsuzo recognized Ume and the little maid. The saucy little maid was holding a pile of clothes in her arms, and at the sight of the shivering, naked men she broke into giggles. Ume kept a straight face and inquired politely, "Was everything quite satisfactory in the bathhouse, gentlemen?" Zenta stared intently at the old woman. Suddenly he threw back his head and started to laugh. "Everything was nice, except that I felt a draft behind my back. It seemed that one of the windows in the washing room was not securely fastened." For an instant Ume's wrinkled face showed grudging respect. "How careless of me!" she exclaimed. "I shall see that it doesn't happen again. And now we must help you to finish your bath before you get chilled. Your dinner is already prepared, and will be brought to your room shortly." "That will not be necessary," said the voice of Jihei. "My master requests the company of these two gentlemen at dinner tonight." In spite of his size, he had moved very quietly, and they had not heard his approach. If he saw anything strange about the two Ronin standing naked in the cold night air, he kept his thoughts to himself. He turned to the women and said curtly, "You are not needed here. Take yourselves off immediately." As the three men walked back to the entrance of the bathhouse, Jihei said, "When I returned to your room, I discovered that you had already left for the bathhouse. That meddling old hag certainly lost no time trying to recruit you. What did she offer?" "Offer?" asked Zenta innocently. "Why, she offered us a bath." Jihei looked sourly for a moment at the Ronin without speaking. Then he turned abruptly and walked down the path. "You will have to be hurry if you don't want to be late for dinner," he said over his shoulder.